Understanding how things can be seen in relation to the vanishing point will help you understand how things are supposed to look when you draw them. So I'm going to use a very basic example. So as always, we start with the horizon line. We establish our vanishing point, and the subject matter I'm going to use is just a bunch of squares. So if I draw a square in the top left corner, I'm going to follow our basic procedures. So here's my subject matter and or shape. I'm going to find my corners. I'm going to connect those corners to the vanishing point. Unless I need it, I am not going to draw the connecting points that would go through my subject matter. Once I've established my vanishing lines, I'm going to find my parallel. In between this vanishing line and this vanishing line is a vertical line. So I'm going to move down and put another vertical line. Between this vanishing line and this vanishing line is this horizontal line. So I'm going to connect it to the line that I've already established and make a horizontal line. So the two sides that I see are the right side of the box and the bottom of the side of the box and the front of the box. If the box is directly in front of me, I'm still going to find my corners, connect to the vanishing point. I am not going to go through my subject matter unless I need to figure something out or unless I'm moving forward in space. So these are the only two vanishing lines that I need to draw. So between this vanishing line and this vanishing line is this parallel. So I'm going to parallel that. So the only two spaces I see in this box is the front and the bottom. The two sides and the top are not seen. Shape or subject matter. Corners or segments. Establishing vanishing lines between the vanishing point and the corners. Not drawing the ones that go through my subject matter unless I'm moving forward in space or unless I need it to understand something. Finding my parallel between the two vanishing lines. Drawing my parallels. So if the shape or subject matter is on the left side of the page, you are going to see the right side of the subject matter. If it is above the horizon line, you're going to see the bottom. If it's below the horizon line, you're going to see the top side. If it's centered and above the horizon line, just the bottom. Below, just the top. If it's on the right side, you are going to see the left side. If it's above, you're going to see the bottom. If it's below, you're going to see the top. If it's in the middle, you're going to see neither. So this is the basics of which sides you are going to see depending on where it is placed in relation to the vanishing point and the horizon line. So with 1 point perspective outdoors, I'm still going to follow the same process that was outlined for any perspective drawing. I'm going to draw the shapes in the subject matter. I'm going to find the corners and segments. I'm going to draw vanishing lines connecting the corners and the vanishing points. I'm going to draw parallel lines, and I'm going to erase extra vanishing points. So step 1, horizon line. Step 2, vanishing point. Now I'm going to use very basic drawings to represent these images. We call those icons. But ultimately, these icons are going to give us the foundations for all the other types of drawings that we can do. So I'm going to start with a house facing us. I'm going to use the quintessential square and triangle. Just like I mentioned before, we've started by drawing our shapes. Step 2 is finding our corners. Step 3 is connecting those corners to the vanishing point. Now, in this situation, if it goes through the subject matter, we don't necessarily need to draw the vanishing lines unless we need to use them. So in this case, we are not going to need to use them. And there will be situations where you will figure out, oh, I need those extra lines to understand where this connects, particularly if you are doing from the vanishing point going outwards. And I'll show that in just a minute. So ultimately, this corner and this corner will be going through my subject matter, so I'm not going to draw them. So I'm going to connect these 3 corners that do not go through the subject matter. I'm going to connect that one. I'm going to connect that one. And I'm going to connect that one. And just like we did with the inside, I'm going to look at my vanishing lines. I'm going to find the line in between the vanishing lines. This tells me what I am paralleling. Then I'm going to move down and decide where my house is going to end. I'm going to make that parallel line. Now that I have this established, I can use this as my next point. So between this vanishing line and this vanishing line is this parallel line. So I need to parallel that line. This gives me a 3-dimensional house. Now, if we are doing multiple houses that face inward, we are going to focus on the corner that is closest to us, just like the windows. So the closest corner is going to be a line going like this. And then we're going to show one edge of our roof, because this is essentially the closest part when it is going away from us. So that's going to go a little bit angled. Now I have my vanishing points. So I'm going to connect this line to my vanishing point, this line to my vanishing point, and this line to my vanishing point. To help you understand where this is the side of the house. And then now we can figure out this angle from this line. And then we're going to connect the top of our house. So these vanishing lines tell how this house diminishes as it gets farther away. So we need to complete our roof, the front of our roof. So this is going up this way, and if we're going to represent a triangle, it needs to connect back down, and that's going to connect down to this line, because this vanishing point is telling us where this ends. So this makes my next point. Between this vanishing line and this vanishing line is this parallel line. So we're going to parallel that. So here's the interesting function of outdoors one-point perspective. If we wanted to make multiple houses from this point, it will show us how it diminishes through space. So we just follow these exact same vanishing lines. So we know this triangle needs to exist. So we're going to make a triangle based off of these vanishing lines. This one goes up here, so I'm going to parallel that one. This one goes this way, so I'm going to parallel that one. This line goes this way, so I'm going to parallel that one. This line connects to the top of my triangle, and it goes this way. So once I have my triangle established, I'm going to parallel this line going this way. So now we have two houses that are both equal distance as they diminish. And I can keep going like this until they become too small to see. Just like we did with the windows on the inside of the house, I'm going to make a door. And we're going to start with the edge that's closest to us. The bottom of our door is going to connect to the bottom of our house, so that vanishing line is already established. The top of our door is going to connect to the vanishing point. And then this is going to be our parallel line between this vanishing line and this vanishing line. And then I can do this on every house as it diminishes. So I need to draw two lines. Two parallel lines. So this is two different ways to use vanishing lines to draw a house. The second most basic thing to draw in an outside one-point perspective is trees. So again, I'm going to start with my horizon line, establish my vanishing point, and this time I'm going to draw a close tree. So to draw things closer on the picture plane, we have to put them lower, and they're going to be bigger. So I'm going to put the trunk of the tree down here. I'm going to put the top of the tree up here. And again, I'm not trying to be super detailed with these. I'm just trying to establish icons that we can use to figure out the one-point perspective. So, like I've mentioned before, up until now, the second step was to find the corners. Trees don't really have established corners, but they have segments. So instead of looking for corners, we're going to establish the segments. So the top segment, we're going to stop at the very top. Then we're going to go down to the middle of the tree where the branches meet the trunk. That's going to be one segment. The second segment is going to be from where the branches meet the trunk and the bottom of the trunk. So these are going to be two different sections or segments. I'm going to connect those to the vanishing point. So now that we have these segments established, any diminishing tree that's in line with this is also going to have those segments. So if I'm drawing a tree here, it's going to connect to the top segment, to the bottom segment, and then the trunk is going to go from this part of the top of the second segment down to the bottom of the second segment. So the assumption is that these trees must have been planted at the exact same time to be the exact same height, or relatively the same height. And this is the same with our houses, where the assumption is that the houses were all essentially the same height. So 1-point perspective allows us to see how things of similar or same height diminish as they go farther away. One of the most basic of these is the idea of the road. And this is, if you look up 1-point perspective, you will typically see some example of a road going on forever until it disappears. So those can be simply drawn by making 2 vanishing lines and then putting the dividing line between those vanishing lines. So this essentially represents a road. Other things can be found in reverse. So different sizes can be found in reverse by understanding where a subject matter exists either far or in the middle, and then using the reverse of the vanishing lines going outwards. So this is a post. At the top of the post and the bottom of the post become my connecting points. And you can do all the corners if you want. And then we're going to start at the vanishing point and connect to those corners or segments and continue going past it. So if I were to draw a post that was closer, that post would have to connect to the top vanishing line and then the bottom vanishing line. And then you can just fill those in to get a somewhat accurate representation of how these diminish throughout space. And just as a note, when things get farther, they also look like they're starting to get closer. So as long as the subject matter is relatively the same size, you can figure out how they diminish going back in space by using segments or by using the corners. And you can do this either from things that are close and going back towards the vanishing point, or things that are far and are coming closer from the vanishing point.
Do more, do better.